world to reveal the face of a very loving and a very compassionate God. Send that same Spirit of Jesus into our minds and hearts this evening so that we may truly understand what it is you speak to us in the Beatitudes. Help us to find the source of our joy and happiness, which sometimes we are looking elsewhere for, but ultimately the true source of our joy and happiness is found in the Beatitudes. Help make that a reality this evening. We ask this and make this prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen. So I want to ask you to stand for a moment, remain standing. The reading I've chosen is a gospel reading. Okay? Now, here's the thing. Before you think you might want to write to bishop and say, oh, this O'Reilly guy is starting a new fad. He's got someone reading the gospel who's not a priest or a deacon. So a priest or a deacon is the only one who can read the gospel while we celebrate Mass. Okay, so if we have a Mass, the only person who can read the gospel is the priest or deacon. That's the rule. But we're not having Mass tonight. So she can read the gospel. So, dear God, don't write the bishop. I may want to come back sometime. Okay? So here's what you're going to hear. Large crowds of people follow Jesus everywhere. Why did they do that? Well, it was very simple. The clergy of the day, the chief priests, the scribes, all they did was they took the book of the law and they said to people, this is what you got to obey. This is it. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. This is the law. Okay? And along comes Jesus and he says, well, you've heard it said that, but I say to you, and then he gives them brand new teaching. Something that these folks had never heard before. They said, wow, where did this man get this? We've never heard this before. So they couldn't get enough of it, they followed him everywhere. Tonight's gospel is an account where Jesus, it says mountain, but it's really not a mountain, it's a big, big hill. But Jesus goes up this hill or mountain, sees the crowd of people, he feels compassion. He said, look, sit down. And the people say, look, Jesus, how am I going to be happy in this life? Our country is occupied by a foreign power. The Romans are occupying the land. And our religion is oppressing us. The chief priests, the scribes, the Pharisees, they're just heaping law upon law on us. How are we going to be happy in a world that is violent and so on? So Jesus gives them an answer. And he gives us the same answer to that question. How can I be happy? And here's what Jesus says.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, Lord.
When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up the mountain. And after he sat down, his disciples came to him. Then he began to speak and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be fulfilled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you, and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. So anyway, we want to well, as you know, there's a, I just want to say welcome all you non-bingo he was a lawyer, and a very, very good young lawyer. Never lost a case, and then one day he lost a case, and it made him think about his life. Anyway, he founded us, and our main job was to preach the gospel to the poor, the most abandoned. And part of the outfit, we have a devotion to our Mother of Perpetual Help. So whenever you see a devotion to Our Lady of Perpetual Help, that's the one that we promote. Part of the religious garb is the full 15-decked rosary. Now, when you look at it, it's upside down, but it's worn in the shape of an N for Mary. I have it on correctly, it looks like an N. At the end of the rosary, there's a little medal. On the one side, we have the image of the man who founded us, St. Alphonsus. The other side, we have the image of Jesus, the Redeemer. Now, interesting little thing about the rosary. Every new group coming into this organization, every new class, there's always one guy, you didn't volunteer for this, you were appointed. One guy who was told, you make the rosaries for the class for next year. Guess who was the rosary maker in my class? So when I was making the rosaries for the group behind next year, I decided, well, the rosary that they gave me when I came in wasn't made all that well. So believe it or not, I put this one together myself. So the rosary that I wear is actually the one that I made. So it's been hanging around literally for, since 1963, 64. Long time. A few prayers over those years. The other thing you see me wear is the mission cross. Now it's a very interesting little cross. So only those of us who were given the job to preach the missions are given this cross. So we have an image of Mary, because that's what Mary was, at the foot of the cross. And then at the very bottom of the cross, there's a little skull and crossbones. Right? Why? Because, you remember, Good Friday, Jesus was crucified on a place called Golgotha, which means what? The place of the skull. Right? The kids think it's poison and pirates, but that's what it means. Jesus, by his dying, destroyed all suffering and death. Now, the cross is worn by me, the preacher, during the main talk, as a reminder to me, and a reminder to you, that what you're going to hear will be my human words, but somewhere in there will be God's word. Okay? Now, the last little thing about the cross. When I die, for example, I will be buried in this black outfit along with the rosary. But they will not bury this cross. So what they'll do is they'll take this cross and give it to another preacher, another young preacher, if we have it. Okay? Now, this cross that I wear, I have no idea where it came from. What preacher had it before me? Might have been some of our men going around preaching missions, maybe in this area back in the 1920s or 30s. There's no name on it. And what's significant is, what's most important is not the messenger, but the message. You got it? So that's just the origin of the cross. So that's just a little information, okay, about the rosary of the cross. Now here's what I want to do tonight. I want to talk to you about some of those beatitudes, the sayings of Jesus. Now, depending upon the translation of the Bible that you use, it is saying in English, every one of those sayings, and there's 8 of them, begins with the word blessed or begins with the word happy. Some translations say Jesus went up the mountain and he said, blessed are the poor, or happy are the poor. Now, in the English language, it's really not a good translation. Blessed or happy. The closest you'd get in the English language would sound like this. Jesus saw the people and he said to them, "Oh, you lucky person." That there's more life in it. There's more energy. Oh, you're a lucky person if you're got nothing to say about what's going on in this world. Just be content to stay in church and say your prayers, but keep your mouth shut. We don't want to hear from you. And a lot of the world looks at us and they say, if those people, if that's what it's like to be a follower of Jesus, no thanks. I know. Now you people are different. You really are. I stand up in front of large groups of people every day. You're different. Very different. And there's a crowd of people sitting in front of me who claim, I know that Jesus is the source of my joy and happiness. You know, I look out at their faces, and to me, 90% of the people are an absolute agony. I could be standing at the door of the church, vested, getting ready to come up and say Mass. Sometimes, you know, I'll run over by people. I'll pull my hand out and say, good morning, how are you? Get out of my way. Or I'll say, at Mass, this is interesting. I say, let's turn down and we offer each other a sign of peace. I see people do this all the time. Here, come on, hurry up, shake it, get it over with, come on, shake it. And these are people who are married to one another, too. So the world does not experience you or me, the follower of Jesus, as being a very happy person. Nothing could be further from the truth. Jesus said, I've told you this, why? So that my joy may be in you, and your joy may be complete. So, we brought up the procession tonight, we had the cross, and we brought up the Easter candle, okay? Now, the church uses symbols, okay? So this Easter candle represents the kingdom of God, the reign of God, the values that Jesus talked about. The world that we live in, we heard last night, is good, but sometimes the values in our world are not good. And these values belong to the kingdom of darkness. The values of Jesus, based on those 8 sayings, belong to the kingdom of light. 2 kingdoms, 2 sets of values. Which one are we going to choose to live by today? The world that we live in, right now, as you know, is a violent world. As I'm speaking, again, unfortunately, our world, our country, especially, we're involved in a war. I don't think you can ever say, I wake up today and all over the world, there's no war anywhere. The world is totally at peace. Never seems to happen, right? As soon as one war ends, another one starts. There is violence everywhere. There's violence between peoples, violence between countries, violence between religions, violence between people of different colors of skin, violence in people's homes, and as you know all too well, there is violence in our churches. We live in a violent world. The kingdom of darkness is a violent world. And the value in this world is this. In a nutshell, we're taught this, right? Stand on your own 2 feet. We're taught this from the time we're. Watch your back as you go through life. Protect yourself at all times. Approach people with suspicion. Everyone's got a hidden agenda. No one's going to give you anything free. There's always a catch. Do unto others before they get a chance to do it unto you. And it doesn't matter how many people you have to walk over, stab in the back, use or abuse, as long as I get to where I want to go, it don't even count. So on that little hillside, Jesus gathers the people around and says this. He says, look, he said, that might make you happy for a while. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. If someone hurts you, oh, you're tempted to hurt them back. If someone curses you, you're tempted to curse them back. He said, I say to you, you really want to be happy? If someone hurts you, he said, turn the other cheek. And if someone curses you, repay the curse with a blessing. Now, what is our response? What did the people do 2,000 years ago? I'm sure some of them said, look, Jesus, thanks very much, but you know what? It's not going to work. And we went to Toronto, and we lived in a basement apartment for 6 years. Nice Jewish family owned the house. After 6 years, my mother said to my father, she said, I'm sick and tired of living in the basement. She said, we need to buy our own house. See, that's the dream, right? That's the goal of every new immigrant family. You come to a country and one day you're going to have your own property, your own piece of land. So off they went, my mother and father, to look for. I said to my dad, that's the house I want right there. I want that one. We should buy that one. Now, my mother was not interested in insignificant details like mortgage payments. My mother didn't bother with that. But she fell in love with the flowers that were in the front yard, and all the flowers in the backyard. She said to my dad, let's buy this house. She fell in love with the garden. They made an offer, and it was accepted. We went back to the basement, and we got the calendar, we counted down every day. The day arrived, we get a big truck, put all of our worldly possessions on the truck, and drive over to move into our first house here in Canada, in the big city of Toronto. Well, it was a big shock when we got there to find out that the next door neighbors were English. That was strike number one. Strike number two, not only were they from England, but they were not Catholic. Strike number two. Strike number three. The house that we had bought was empty for 2 weeks, okay? So, in the time that that house was empty, these people, Tom and Winnie Cooper, I'll never forget their names. I know you find this hard to believe, but I lost my heart. This is a true story. The Coopers went into the backyard, and they moved the fence 3 feet into our property. So they stole 3 feet of land. Now where were all the flowers and the rose bushes that were along the fence? They were no longer on our property. They were in Cooper's yard. Now, my mother died in 1996. I didn't see it, but I'm convinced that she was a card-carrying member of the Irish Republican Army. I never saw the membership card, but I'm sure she was a member. Well, there was no war, no real overt act of violence against the Coopers for stealing all the land and flowers, but this is what we did to get even. You ready for this? We lived side by side with the Coopers for 20 years. Never, not once, did we speak to them. I was brought up, my sisters brought up, and we were told, if they're out there, don't you dare look over. Those people don't exist. Those people are dead. Don't look their way, don't speak a word to them. 20 years, not a word. What happened in my family? Here we are. My mother would say, hurry up. Why? Get out of bed. It's Sunday morning. We've got to go to Mass. We can get out of bed, get washed and dressed, get in the car, tear off to the church, rush in the door of the church, sit in the pew, and then we listen to the priest up here every Sunday preach wonderful sermons about love, forgiveness, tolerance, acceptance. And then we even have the nerve to get out of the pew and come up and receive communion, and then as soon as Mass was over, get in the car and go right back and still not talk to the Coopers. We were very Catholic said, that's what's going to make you happy. The only antidote to violence is not violence. It is gentleness. It's not easy. I mean, I'm going to make this real. A couple of Christmases ago, I was coming out of the mall, and I had, done my little bit of Christmas shopping. It was a nice day. My window was half down. I'm just happy. And there's a car in front of me, and he's waiting for the little green arrow so he can turn left. So he's number one, I'm number two. So I'm sitting in my car. Next thing you know, this guy comes up on my right. Now he wants to turn left. But he's in the wrong lane. Now, had he asked me to let him in, I would have let him in. But he didn't ask. Oh no. He just presumes to just move his car and just butt in and cut me off. Now, I'm at an age and a stage in my life now where I have made a conscious decision never, ever to let an act of bad attitude or rudeness go unnoticed. So I'm sitting in my car and I'm saying, what a moron, what an ignorant man that is. So I sat there like a little horn out, beep, 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 idiot. Next thing you know, this huge guy gets out of the car. Oh my God. He comes around to where my window is half down. And now he's red in the face. He's angry. He's in a rage. And he's just sputtering away. He's cursing. And he puts his face right in. I won't tell you what he said, but he screamed at me. He said, "Blank you old man." Now, I'm not upset that he cursed at me, but he called me an old man. Now, that tipped me right off. Okay? So down goes my window, and my head goes out. I said, well, blank you too, you big slob. And then the arrow turns green. He gets in his car, and he's driving off ahead of me with his finger out the window. Not this finger, by the way, the other one. And where am I? Oh, I'm right behind him too, with my finger, not this one, out the window. Then you get home and you say, what was he say, Jesus? Yes. If someone curses you, oh, you're tempted to curse them back. He said, but I say to you, repay the curse with a blessing. It's not easy. There is something instinctive in us as human beings that when confronted with violence, we respond to violence with violence. Hopefully, I don't know, but if the next time that ever happens, I might have enough sense to roll down my window. If he said, blank you, you old man, I might just put my head out and say, bless you. You're still not getting in. Bless you anyway. I don't know. It's not easy, right? So every day we're confronted with all this stuff. So what Jesus is saying is this. He said, look, the circle of violence will never be broken between countries, religions, races, unless you try to live your life as a gentle man or woman. It's not going to be easy, because the world that you live in is so violent. Yes, you could be shoved aside, you could be taken advantage of, you could be walked on, walked away from, ignored, whatever. He said, it's okay. He said, they did it to me first. You want to follow me? He said, you've got to try to live your life like that. As a gentleman and as a gentle woman. He said, try it. Because if not, the violence will continue. So I'm going to end this section by telling you a story. I heard the story last time I was back home in Ireland. And I heard the story in the church, so I'll pass it on to you. Well, actually, it wasn't a church, it was a pub. But it sounds better if I say church, though, right? Well, I thought I was in the church. I heard Jesus' name mentioned so often. You know, in Israel, they have this big wall. They call it the Wailing Wall. See a picture of that? So here's the little story. This fellow goes down to the wall, and he says to the guide, he said, who's that little man in white down by the wall? He said, well, that's the Pope. Where are you from? He said, well, I'm a Jew from Brooklyn, New York. He said, what's that Pope doing down there? He said, oh, he's praying for peace between Jews and Arabs and Muslims. Oh, he said, that's wonderful. He said, well, who's he talking to down there? He said, he's talking to God. He said, that's great. The other guy said, who's that little fella in the white by the wall? He said, well, that's the Pope. Where are you from? He said, I'm from South Africa. What's that Pope doing down there? Oh, he's praying for peace between people of different colors of skin, blacks and whites and so on. Great. He said, well, who's he talking to? He said, he's talking to God down there. So this other guy goes down and he says, who's that little fellow in white? The guy said, that's the Pope. Where are you from? He said, I'm from Northern Ireland. He said, what's that Pope doing down there? He said, well, he's praying for peace between Catholics and Protestants. Oh, he said, very good. He said, but who's he talking to? He said, the wall. 2,000 years have gone by, and we're still talking to the wall. Not a whole lot has changed, has it? Okay, so, now there's another saying. Here's what I don't have time to talk about all 8, so I'm just going to pick and choose some of these things. So I talked about the meek and the gentle. Here's one. It's actually the very first one. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Okay? Now here's the thing. We live in a world now today. You know, it's now actually, October 1st, right? In August, in Toronto, I went into a store and they were already selling Christmas trees and had their Christmas decorations out for sale. In August! I refused to go into a store. I walked out. Because everything is driven by the Almighty God. They don't give you time to enjoy the seasons or the days. Now, we live in a world where we're just so geared to all of this consumerism. They tell you, you are what you have. You know, what kind of house you live in gives you an image. What kind of car you drive. How much education you have. What kind of beer or wine you drink. How much money you got in the bank. See, all this stuff gives you an image of who I should be. And the problem is, if I don't have that stuff, then I think I'm unhappy. And Jesus on that little hillside gathers the people around him. He says, look, he said, you really want to be happy? Happy are you who are poor now, in spirit. Now, what does that really mean? Poor in spirit. Now, if Jesus were physically here, I know Jesus is really present, but physically here that I could just, go up and just chat with him, I have questions. So would you. I'd probably say, look, he said, I want to be poor in spirit. Now, does that mean that I can't have a big screen TV? 60 inches, whatever, huge TV. Is that what you're talking about, Jesus? Can I have that? He said, and that's what I'm not talking about that at all. You can have 60 inches TV. It doesn't matter. Oh. Does it mean that I can't drive the latest model of a nice car? No, he said, I'm not talking about having cars at all. Well, does it mean that? Surely it must mean that I have to walk around and really look poor, and dress poor, and have holes in my clothes, and look like I'm down and out. Is that what you're talking about? That's not what I'm talking about. Well, what is it you're saying? He said, well, I have a question to ask you, okay? And here's the question. He'll say to me and to you, what are you running after in this life? Where your heart is, there's your treasure. Once you figure out what it is you want most out of this life, he said, there's your treasure. He said, if you're going to give your heart away, give your heart to another human being, give your heart to God, but never give your heart to a thing. Because no matter how good or valuable or precious that thing is, he said, it could end up owning and possessing you. Seek ye first God's kingdom, the things that will truly last and not rust away or rot or be lost. He said, well, what is it? I'm sufficient. I've got it all. Leave some room left in your heart for another human being or for God. And recognize your own poverty, helplessness. I was doing a retreat one time, and this lady made an appointment to see me, and this is her story. So she sat down there and she told me, she said, you know when you go to the doctor and you have tests done, and then the doctor might say, well, we're sending you off to get more tests. She said, I just didn't want to hear back. So she said, weeks went by, and finally I got this dreaded call from the doctor's office. I had to come back. And she said, I'm sitting in the doctor's office in 10 minutes of just awkward conversation. Finally the doctor said, I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but the tests show that you've got cancer. And she said, it was like being hit between the eyes with a 2x4. She said, me? I've got cancer? She said, I went numb. I have no memory of how I made it from the doctor's office back home. She said, I went into the house, the kids were in school, my husband was at work. I went into the kitchen, she said, made myself a cup of tea, came back out, sat on the couch. She said, trying to understand, I've got cancer. She said, I looked around the house, she said, we're not rich. Far from it. But we're comfortable. She said, my husband and I, we worked very hard to get what we have. We put off getting things, we saved, we did without to make sure that we could get what we have. We were very happy, but we're not rich, but we're comfortable. And she said, I have a little hobby, I collect spoons. And my friends know that. When they go off on a holiday, they'll buy a spoon for me and bring it back. As a result, she said, the walls of my house are covered with spoons. And there she said, I'm sitting on the couch, just been told that I've got cancer, and the only thought that was in my mind was, she said, those bloody spoons. What's going to happen to the spoons when I die? Oh, maybe the years will go by and the kids will give me a spoon. The years will go by and the spoons will be lost. She said, those spoons mean nothing to anyone but me. And again, this is what Jesus said. Look, set your hearts on the real things that are going to last, that will not be lost or rust or just fade away. Once you figure out what it is, there's your treasure. But it's not easy. In this world of ours, we're just driven to have more and more and more. And we feel, well, if I don't have it, then I'm unhappy. I was in a women's prison a couple of years ago. And we were sitting around talking, and me, I can be somewhat shy. I said to one of the gals, I said, so what did you do? How come you ended up in here? And she said, shoplifting. Well, unfortunately, I think maybe shoplifting was all too common. And before I had a chance to say anything else, she said, $100,000. Really? And she said, yeah, $100,000. She said, I'm a single parent. I said, well, yeah. She said, well, you know nothing about that. She said, but I'm a single parent. She said, when I send my kids off to school, I don't want my children to be left out of anything. I want my children to be fully accepted by their friends. She said, but I can't afford to buy all the stuff that their friends have. The latest jeans, the latest sneakers, the backpacks, all the latest electronic gadgets. She said, I don't want my kids looked down on or left out of anything because they don't have the right clothes or whatever. So she said, I went out and shopping. Good motive, bad means. But there's the pressure. Having these things is important. And there's nothing wrong with them, Jesus said. You can have the big screen TV, you can have the car, you can have all kinds of nice clothes. He said, but that's not what I'm talking about. Look at your heart. And you got room left. He said, find out where your treasure is. There you go. It's not easy, is it? Now, I don't think we only have time to speak with one more. And I think this one never gets a lot of attention. So I think I'll talk about this with Lynn. Interesting little saying of Jesus passed away. He's gone over. He's expired. Kick the bucket. Any expression except don't use the word die. Oh, don't use the word die. And our world, our culture tells us that aging is a disease. Imagine, aging is a disease. To be avoided at all costs. You don't want to get old, because if you get really old, you know what's going to happen. You could pass on. And you know, the world today, there's no more old people. All the old people are gone. I have no idea where all the old people went. But now, all the old people are gone. All we have in the world are seniors. But all the old people have disappeared. I have no idea where they went. But now we've just got a world full of seniors. And there's no more old folks' homes. Now we put our seniors in assisted living centers. And we give them wonderful sounding names like cemeteries. Shady Acres. Who are we trying to kid? You know, the book says, no, listen, don't ever get old. Think young, look young, feel young, because the world that we live in idolizes and worships youth. Oh, youth is where it's at. And again, you know, young people don't want to be young, they want to be older. Us older people, we'd like to go back, be younger. They'll look in the mirror and you go, yeah, a couple more just fell off. Or you say, that's another, all the women, that's another wrinkle. That wrinkle wasn't there last night. Holy Mother of God, what have I got to do? Well, the world tells you, if you ladies see a wrinkle or whatever, you're supposed to rush out and buy this little tube of anti-aging cream. Little tube of anti-aging cream. Okay. Now, I'm looking at some of you here tonight, and I can tell you this. It doesn't work. It just covers it all up. Have you tried it? But again, it's you know, we have to accept the stage and age of life that we're in. You know, and to be honest, a 75-year-old woman in a leather miniskirt does nothing for me. That ship has sailed a long time ago. And I'm not just picking on the women here. All of us guys, hey, you know, I mean, a 60-year-old man in a Speedo. And us guys, we get to a certain age, and our biggest question, us men every day, well, what do I wear now? Do I wear boxers or do I wear briefs? Boxers or briefs? Depends. Jesus gathers the people on that hillside and said, you really want to be happy? You have to mourn all of your losses. He said, mourning means you accept the loss. You don't deny it. Even though the world that you live in says, oh, you're still young. Some of us are not young. You know, we can't deny things. You can't cover it up. Maybe, you know, we have to be honest and say, you know what? I was able years ago to be able to walk up and run up 3 or 4 stairs without getting winded. I can't do it now. That's a loss. The loss of my youth. Even though the world says, oh, you're not old, you're still young. I'm not young. Maybe the eyesight is not as good as it was. That's a loss. Maybe the hearing is terrible. Maybe the memory is bad. Maybe I need help to walk. Maybe I need a cane. Maybe I need a walker. Where I live in Toronto with all those wonderful senior older men, on the 2nd floor, we used to have a priest there, he's still there, Father Bert. Now, he's got a little bit of Alzheimer's, but he had 2 hips replaced, right? And as part of this therapy, what he has to do is he's got a walker, and he walks up and down the hall. Yeah. And he's talking to the walker, too. He says, go on, Johnny, we're going up the hall. Go on, Johnny. He gets to the end of the hall, he says, okay, Johnny, we have to turn around and go back again. So I'm sitting in my room, and poor old Father Bert's up and down, talking Jesus said, let them go. Shed the tears. It's painful. He said, but that's the only way to be truly happy. Don't cling on to them. We develop friendships. We develop relationships, right? What happens sometimes in our friendships? Something we said or did, those people, we were good friends for years, now they don't give us the time of day. People enter into marriages. Oh, it's going to be a happy marriage till the day I die. Maybe for some people, it was the biggest mistake they ever made. It was hell on earth. Jesus said, shed tears, cry for it, because it's painful. But one of the commandments, broken, I think, a lot today, number 4, honor your father and mother. I hear this all the time from parents, grandparents. We did everything for the kids. We did without. Tried to pass on our values, our beliefs, our morals. And now the kids are living in situations that we don't even understand. And even some of the kids, the grandkids, they're not even baptized. And our children, they don't visit as often. They don't call. They don't write unless they want something. Maybe you mourn for the loss of love and respect that you deserve to get from your children, but you don't receive. Just shed the tears. It's not easy. And perhaps the biggest loss of all would be the loss of life itself, no? Our own lives or those that we love. And make no mistake about it, it doesn't matter how much faith we have. When the hand of death moves in and touches us where we live, there's always a hole. There's an emptiness, a void that will never be filled. Never. There's a number of things that you can never get back. Once you speak a word, you can never get it back. Once you throw a stone, you can't get it back. Once you miss an occasion, you can never get the occasion back. Once someone has died, you can never get them back. There's always a loss. Jesus said, to be truly happy means that you accept it. It may take a lifetime, but then you acknowledge the loss and let it go. And there's all kinds of losses, but this is the one that really strikes fear and terror into one's life. The loss of life. Over the years, I've cried with many people over their losses of loved ones. But again, one of the things that I'm going to tell you now is just exactly what Jesus talked about. There was a 17-year-old girl who went to her graduation or prom and never came back. She collapsed on the dance floor and she died. And that happened probably about 20 years ago. To this day, the parents still have the very same shoes that she left at the door 20 years ago, thinking in some way that one day she's going to come back to that door and step into those shoes. That's not healthy. It's not going to happen. See, that's in complete denial. But again, it's this aspect of losing someone you love, losing my own life that strikes fear and terror. Do you know how to make God laugh? Tell God what you've got planned to do for tomorrow. I'm going to do this tomorrow. Maybe, maybe not. 1996, I was in Moncton, New Brunswick, preached the mission there. Wednesday night, at the end of the mission, we had a good time. My plan was to get up on Thursday morning, fly back to Toronto, pick up my car, and drive to Ottawa, because I had another mission planned to start that weekend. Those were my plans. I woke up, however, on Thursday morning and had a heart attack. This can't be happening, God. I'm way too young and way too healthy. That was Thursday morning. The day before, Wednesday, I was in the hospital visiting some people. When I was in that hospital on Wednesday, did I think that I would be in the same hospital as a patient the very next day? No. That'll never happen. I'm way too young, far too healthy. That'll never happen. But there I was. That's a scary thing. Now, I've got to tell you this. I've never been a patient before. And there I was in this, strange city, in this hospital, coronary care unit, hooked up to all these machines, couldn't get out of bed. After about 5 days, this nice nurse came me and she said, Father O'Reilly? I said, yes. She said to me, this is what she said. She said, are we ready for our bath? I've never been a patient before. I said, we are. So she takes the cloth and she washed my face and my neck and my shoulders and my chest and my stomach, and she handed me the cloth. She said, now it's your turn. I was so stupid. I took the cloth and I washed her face. I can never go back to mountain. I'm still there. But isn't that the case? We think, oh, I have an unlimited amount of time. I'll do this tomorrow. I'll do this next week. I'll do this next year. You don't know. You know, the thing is, now's the time to do the things, you know, that we said before. Maybe now's the time to sit down and write that little note. Or maybe now's the time to pick up the phone and call somebody. Say, look, I've been meaning to call you. I've been putting it off. Or now's the time to go to someone and say, I love you. Or I forgive you. You forgive me. What always bothered me when I was a pastor would be funerals. I mean, I didn't mind funerals, obviously not. But it was always a stark reminder. There would be, you see, you know, someone in the casket, stone cold dead, wheeled up here in front of the altar. And then usually up on the altar, sanctuary, there would be a mountain of flowers. Big mountain of flowers. And I've often said to myself, I wonder how many flowers did she get when she was alive? And now there's a mountain of flowers. Why do we insist on throwing flowers at dead people? They can't smell them. You see, if you're going to give the flowers, don't wait until someone's dead. Give the flowers now. Do the things that you say you need to do. Don't put it off, because we never know. See? So we know that we're going to die. That should make us live each day that we're here. And I remember one time in Paris saying that, I said, it doesn't matter how much money you have, what kind of car you drive, what kind of house you live in. I said, the fact is that one day everybody in this parish is going to die. There was a guy sitting in the back seat. Ha, ha, ha. He said, that's pretty good. I said, maybe he didn't hear me. I said, but it doesn't matter how much money you got or car you drive. I said, everybody in this parish one day is going to die. He said, ha, ha, ha. I said, well, what's so funny about that? He said, well, I'm not from this parish. Nice try, right? Read Matthew's Gospel, chapter 5. Everything that Jesus said about the Beatitudes, you'll read it there, all right? So, here's what I'm going to do. We're going to sing this little song now. Then after the song, I have a couple of short announcements, and then we're finished, okay? This Jesus that I've been speaking of course, is truly present here. You've been listening to everything I've been saying and every thought that you've been thinking. And of course, Jesus was a very gentle man. And he was gentle so that we could be strong. And Jesus, of course, allowed himself to be taken and hung up on a cross so that we could be free. And again, the message of the Beatitudes tonight, again in this song, is also that it's truly in our moments of weakness that we're going to find our strength. So again, just close your eyes and allow these words to penetrate into your hearts. You were broken, that we may be healed. You were So folks, again, thank you for your presence this evening. I certainly appreciate it. Just a couple of announcements now. Tomorrow morning, again, same time at 9 o'clock. For those of you who are able and willing and free and able to come here, we have our second morning Mass at 9 o'clock. And just to give you notice of what's happening tomorrow night, okay? So, same time, 7:30. I hope you make the time to come and listen to the talk. But after the talk, we're going to provide you with a wonderful opportunity to celebrate the most beautiful sacrament, the sacrament of reconciliation. Okay? Now, again, you're not children. We're not forcing people to do this. But come for the talk at 7:30 as normal. And then if you don't want to stay and do this sacrament, that's fine. You're free to go home. Father Vic just told me that he's invited 2 other priests to come to help celebrate this beautiful sacrament. Not only, he tells me, are they kind men and good, compassionate and so on, but they're very deaf. So go to them, okay? So we'll do that tomorrow night after the talk. But 7:30, we've got to come again and we'll have my third mission talk, all right? Let me see, what else do I have to say? Oh yeah, I think you can smell it here. There's tea and coffee at the back again, if you want to stay and have a cup of tea or whatever. There's no Irish coffee, unfortunately. Maybe on Wednesday night we can bring some Irish. No, coffee. Yeah, okay. Let me see if Jesus said this. I'm sure it's in the Bible or somewhere. Is there a find it quickly? Oh yeah. Jesus said this. He said, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there shall be a collection. It's not there. It should be there, but it's not there. And here's the thing. Wherever we're invited to go for a mission, we always try to go. So a couple of years ago, I flew all the way out west to a little town called, it was on the tip of my tongue now. It's a nice little town. It's near Parry, British Columbia. But it's a little mining town. And I flew all the way up there, and I had the mission there. They said, Father, this is the best attended mission we ever had. Do you know how many people were there each night? 28. Not a big crowd. But those 28 people were entitled to a mission. You know, you can't spend all your time preaching in basilicas and cathedrals with thousands of people. Those 28 people were entitled to a mission. So we don't set a fee. Because those 28 people would say, oh, here, now if there was a fee, well, you know, they wouldn't even come. But they invite us and then we come. There's no set fee. So all we do is to hopefully cover the cost of the mission. We have a collection. So as you leave tonight, there'll be some people offering you a little yellow envelope that says, Redemptorist Parish Mission. You take the envelope home, okay? You bring it back on Wednesday night, which is the last formal night of the mission. Now I got to tell you, you bring it back not in the same condition you received it. Just got to make that known, okay? But you bring it back, okay, on Wednesday night. If you're not going to be here Wednesday, bring it back tomorrow. If you're not going to be here tomorrow or Wednesday, wait till the weekend and bring it back then. All right? So that's all that is. So again, I want to thank you for your presence. There's still some CDs there for our music, and I appreciate the people who bought them so far. The older men, and keep Father Bird supplied under John and Walker. So if you'd like to stand, I'll give you the final blessing. All right? The Lord be with you. And may Jesus, on that little hillside, who spoke the words of Beatitudes, continue to give you the strength and me as we continue to go through life, the strength to be gentle people. Give us the strength to be able to be poor in spirit and to be able to mourn our losses, whatever they might be. And may Jesus continue to watch over you and bless you and keep you safe from harm. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Go in peace. Be careful now going home. And be Christian trying to get out of the parking lot.